Hi, everyone, and welcome back to Brian's Horror Corner, and welcome to this horror movie review as part of my 31 Horror Movies in May series. So today we're going to take a look at an early Wes Craven movie. Well, not that early. I guess it's kind of in his transitional period. It's a film that not a lot of people talk about or they don't really like in some cases, and that is Deadly Blessing from 1981. I have the Scream Factory edition, which came out I believe in like 2014 or something. But yeah, this is the collector's edition Blu-ray from Scream Factory. So first time watch for me. Had never seen Deadly Blessing before, but obviously I'm a big Wes Craven fan as a director. So let's just go ahead and get into it, starting with the setup, the premise, and the cast, and then I'll get into why I think this movie's actually better than some of the other reviews and things that I've heard about it, in my opinion. So, Deadly Blessings, a 1981 American slasher film directed by Wes Craven. The film tells the story of a strange figure committing murder in a contemporary community that is not far from another community that believes in ancient evil and curses. Um, so the film opens with Martha and Jim Schmidt, who live on an isolated farm named Our Blessing, where most of its population are um, Hittites. Basically, they're like the Amish community. Everything's really old school. They don't have any technology or anything. No TVs, no running water, or anything. It's an old school religious. I hate to say cult, but religious community, I guess. Let's just leave it at that. They're called Hittites, I guess, um, who are an Anster religious community who, according to one of its characters, makes the Amish look like swingers. So they're not actually the Amish, but I mean, I think most people would relate more to them as they're like the Amish. But um, Jim was a Hittite, but left the community when he got married. Jim tells a neighbor, Louisa Stoller, who is the mother of Faith, that his wife Martha is pregnant and that Louisa's services as a midwife will soon be needed by them. Louisa and Faith are not part of the Hittite community either. In fact, they do not like them, in part because of the constant harassment of Faith by William Gluntz, who chases her and calls her an all outsider's incubus. That night, Jim searches the barn after hearing strange noises from inside, but is murdered when a mysterious figure runs him over with his tractor. This is alleged to be a mechanical accident. Friends Lena Marcus and Vicki Anderson visit Martha after Jim's funeral. When William goes to the house one night to search for his shoe that he accidentally left when sneaking around earlier in the day, he is stabbed through the back by an unseen figure. The following day, William's father and Jim's father and the leader of the Hittites, 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 I don't know if I'm pronouncing that right, but Isaiah Schmidt comes to the farm looking for William. Martha tells the men she has no idea where William is, and they start to leave. Isaiah goes back and offers to buy back the farm from Martha, but she reminds him how they shunned Jim from his community, and she slams the door. So that's basically the setup and the premise of the movie, the beginning of the movie, like the first third, I would say, maybe a little bit less than that. Cast wise, we have Maren Jensen as Martha Schmidt, Sharon Stone as Lena Marcus, Susan Buckner as Vicki Anderson, Jeff East as John Schmidt, Colleen Riley as Melissa, Douglas Barr as Jim Schmidt, Lisa Hartman as Faith Stoller, Lois Nettleton as Louisa Stoller, Ernest Borgnine as Isaiah Schmidt, and Michael Berryman as William Glunt. So yeah, pretty good cast. That's one of a few reasons why I actually like this movie, and I think it actually works for what it is. Like I said, not a lot of positive reviews for this movie. A lot of people say it's okay, all the way from okay to terrible. I mean, it did not get good critical acclaim at all. I think it has like 17% on Rotten Tomatoes, or one of the major review sites. But I don't know. I actually enjoyed it, even though it was my first time and only time watch for me. I think the film, for the most part, worked for me. Not perfect. It's not a perfect film by any stretch, and it isn't Wes Craven's best movie. But I enjoyed it for what it was. So let's just go ahead and get into what I liked about it, a few of the cons and things that I didn't like about it. So as far as pros go, going back to the cast, I really like the cast in this movie. You have some old school performers, established actors and actresses like Ernest Borgnine, who I'm a big fan of, and Lois Nettleton, who I'm a big fan of. I know her best from the original Twilight Zone series. She was in one of my favorite episodes, The Midnight Sun, in that series. And of course, Ernest Borgnine has been in a lot of movies, Marty, The Poseidon Adventure, even a small cameo in Jesus of Nazareth, one of my favorite adaptations or takes on Jesus. Um, so he's just got a presence about him, and he certainly does in this movie as well, being the leader of this sort of Amish slash religious community known as the Hittites. Um, and then all the way up to the newer performers, the newer actresses, young actresses that are just trying to start out, like Maren Jensen and Sharon Stone and Susan Buckner, who I think they do a pretty good job holding this movie together through the mid part to the end of this movie. But yeah, overall, I just really like the cast in this movie. I thought everyone did a good job in their roles. And I thought they brought a lot. And I just thought it was a nice, diverse cast to make this movie work. So obviously, Michael Berryman as well, who him and Wes Craven worked together quite a bit. So um, I think it's a very unique story that we don't get very often. Not only the story, but like the setting of it as well. It's very different for a slasher slash horror movie, having sort of the religious aspects of it, sort of the cultish aspects, as well as this the setting being out in the country, like on these rural farm areas and communities, which can definitely be kind of creepy, especially when you throw in the religious type cult and this idea of the incubus. I think it makes for a really interesting watch. I was really interested to check it out because it wasn't a typical slasher film at like a camp setting or a school, or not that I don't like those, but just to see something different. I thought it was very unique and I enjoyed the setting in this movie. I also thought this movie had, and I really liked the creepy atmosphere within the movie, especially in certain scenes. Um, like the barn scene's one that people talk about, or the bathtub scene, which was Nightmare Before Elm Street bathtub scene before Nightmare on Elm Street bathtub scene, basically. If you know the movie, you know what I'm talking about. I enjoyed the score in the movie as well. I thought it was maybe a little bit more of a thriller kind of score than horror, but I thought it was still effective for this movie. Also, I got to talk about there was great suspenseful scenes within the movie. The barn scene, of course, is the first one that comes to mind. The bathtub scene with the snake comes to mind, and then the final act of the movie, the last 20-25 minutes of the movie, all really good suspense, bordering on horror, I would say. Very well done by Wes Craven. And even though there's not a lot of huge practical effects in this movie, I thought the practical effects, well, they're not groundbreaking. I thought they were effective for this movie, especially some of the effects that we get at the very end of the movie, which I'll get into that. That's one of the areas that a lot of people don't like from what I've read. But also the stuff with the spider and the web. If you've seen the movie, you know what I'm talking about. I thought the special effects, which are all practical, of course, worked very well for me. So yeah, I don't know. I really enjoyed this movie. Those are a lot of the things I enjoyed. Good directing, good cast, pretty good acting across the board. A good story with a unique setting and a unique premise. But like I said, it's not perfect. So let's get into some of the cons that I have about the movie. Um, so there's one of the characters, one of the female characters, one of the three leads. For most of the movie, it's the three leads are these three young female characters. One of them, who's kind of portrayed to be the strong, sensible one, kind of makes a stupid decision or choice towards the end of towards the end of the movie, which leads to her demise. I don't think the movie or the directing did a good job of paying off that character for the setup that we were given with her. So that was kind of a miss there that really didn't work for me. Basically, it has to do with being trapped in a car, um, gasoline and a fire, and a chance to escape. But for some reason, she was more interested in driving away in the car before the fire got to her. And obviously, she was not successful. That's as much as I want to say. So that didn't work for me. The kills in this movie are nothing spectacular, nothing overly special. There's some stabs. Um, Especially for an 80s slasher, they're nothing to write home about with some of the other effects and kills that we get having to do with kills in terms of the gore or even the originality. Like I said, a lot of it is stabbing or, like the tracker death at the beginning of the movie where one of the first character to pass away or to get killed, I should say. It's just kind of a cutaway scene. It's not a very effective kill in terms of the tractor hitting them and running them over. You don't really see much. Now, again, how much was cut out because of the MPAA and an X rating and all that stuff? I'm not sure, but it just didn't seem like anything was bordering on being over the top or overly gory in this movie. So there's not a lot of gore. So if that's something you're looking for, you'll probably be disappointed in this movie. As many people have mentioned, it is a slow burn type of slasher films, type of horror movie, especially in the middle. We get a little action at the beginning and some setup. And then for like after the first 20 minutes to about the last 20 minutes, there's about 45 minutes in there where there's a few things that happen, like the bathtub scene and the barn scene. But as far as like deaths and a lot of real horror, that doesn't really happen in the middle of the movie. It kind of sets up for what happens in the end. Um, so yeah, it's more talking and more build up in that middle part of the movie. So just be aware of that. Um, but that's all I really got for cons, quite frankly. Getting into the very end of this movie. So this movie could be described as several different things. It could be described as a thriller. It could be described as religious horror. It could be described as a slasher film, which that is how it's described. But it could also be described as somewhat of a supernatural horror film as well. And the part at the very end, after one of our characters everything seems to be okay, and the slasher part of the movie's kind of resolved itself, a supernatural aspect takes over right before the ending credits of the film, basically. Now, I actually enjoyed that scene. It was very scary, very creepy, and very effective in terms of the effects, like the floorboards going back together to cover it up to look like nothing ever happened. Like I said, I don't want to give too much away, but a lot of people had a problem with it because they kind of say it's out of the blue. I kind of disagree with that because if you watch the movie, there's certain things that happen that can't be slasher related. Like when it's revealed who the killer is slash killers in this movie, there's some things having to do with like a spider and a web and some dream sequences that one of the main characters ends up having while they're staying in this house. It is more supernatural related. So I don't agree that it comes out of the blue what happens at the very end. I think it's actually a nice twist. And some of the movie sets it up. Now, some of the movie, you could say, sets up more of the slasher elements than it does the supernatural element. If you want to say that, that's fair. But I don't agree that the supernatural element or how the film actually ends is completely out of nowhere. And for me, it actually worked pretty well. It kind of left me I don't want to say like terrified or anything, but it was a nice, scary sequence to end the movie. And for a Wes Craven movie where he's had studio interference to give him a lot of endings to his movies that don't really need to be there, like Deadly Friend and the original Nightmare on Elm Street. That's really the only problem that a lot of people have with that movie. I can kind of see where they're coming from a little bit more in that one, but this one, it didn't bug me as much. I thought that, like I said, there was enough setup for supernatural elements. If you just go back and watch the whole barn sequence, there's things that happen there that's not I don't believe is all slasher related. Now some of it might be slasher related, but I don't think all of it is. I think it's kind of intertwined in that scene. The bathtub scene is certainly the slasher element, but they're talking about this incubus throughout the movie, this religious group, sort of the Amish cult group. Um and if anybody's watching out there, I'm not trying to imply that Amish people are cultish or anything, but the way that this religious group is portrayed in this movie, I use the Amish only because it's something I think that most people would be able to sort of identify with, just in terms of how they practice and how they live their life, not in terms of any sort of evil cultish horror religion. That stuff's kind of thrown in with this incubus side of it for the fact that it's a horror movie. So I just want to throw that out there so nobody takes me the wrong way on that. I don't think Amish people are cultish. But they are different compared to most of modern society. But anyway, I'm getting off on a tangent here. All I'm saying is there's enough in the movie if you go back and watch it that I think that the supernatural element that happens at the very end of the film actually works. At least it did for me, and it was a very nice and scary sequence in my opinion. So again, I this film gets a little bit more hate than I'm going to give it. It's not a perfect film. I do have some problems with it. The pacing's kind of off. It doesn't work throughout the movie. That's, I guess you could say, another con. But overall, for what this is, being sort of unique and different with the cast that it has, I enjoyed it. And I'm glad to have it in my collection. I'll definitely watch it again. I think I'm going to give it an 8 out of 10. I was bordering on 7.5 to 8, but I'm going to be generous today. I'm kind of feeling generous, and I really enjoyed the film, to be honest with you. So I'm going to give it an 8 out of 10. Go ahead and comment down below, guys, your thoughts on Deadly Blessing from 1981 by Wes Craven. Do you not like it as much as I do? Do you like it as much, if not more? Go ahead and comment down below. Let me know. Please like this video and hit the little notification bell down below so you don't miss any of my upcoming videos for this series. And be sure to hit the subscribe button so you don't miss any of my horror content. I pretty much have the rest of the year figured out at this point. We're only in May. So yeah, some exciting things coming up. So stay tuned for that. But thank you for watching this video. Have a great day. Stay scared. Bye.